Welcome back to the Star Wars Newsnet Timeline Show, episode 24. We're in our second era Kobe Bryant episode today. And we got two great Young Jedi Adventures episodes coming at you from the year 232 BBY. Still in phase one of the High Republic. Still in 232 BBY. We're going to be here for a hot second. Luke, we're making our way through Young Jedi Adventures. The timeline show is reaching the mid-20s now. And I must say, I am vibing with these episodes that we're talking about today. Two of the parts. So we have two episodes, each episode's two parts. Part 1 and 4, two of my favorite parts we've had in a while. So I'm pretty jazzed up to talk about them. How are we doing? Are we still comfortable in our 232 BBY era?
We're comfy. It's a great
cozy
year for us. Comfy, cozy, mindful, maybe even demure. Part 1 I get because I'm jazzed for this one. Part 4 is interesting. I didn't see that coming from you. Not that it's a bad episode, but that's interesting. I'm gonna enjoy hearing why you love that one so much. So
yes,
I'm ready.
All right, let's go ahead and get into this. Remember, the Star Wars Timeline Show. Every Saturday, Luke and I join forces to bring you the next piece of canon material on the Star Wars timeline. This is the great Star Wars timeline passion project that you have been searching for. These are the shows you've been searching for. Check us out, Apple and Spotify, at Star Wars Newsnet. Leave us a review for those audio listeners. Check out the live show from this last Thursday. We're recording this on a Tuesday or a Monday, at around 9:50, 10 o'clock Eastern time. So I couldn't tell you what the Thursday live show is about. I'm sure we had a great time though. So go check it out, whatever it was. Check out our very own. We have a Monday podcast, but this week, no Monday pod. We did have a YouTube video drop of a review of the new Star Wars video game, Star Wars Outlaws, which our very own Jay did for us. I'm sure you guys will enjoy that review. Go check it out there. And then on Monday, in a couple days, I will be sitting down with Jay and Miguel for the Monday show. And we will have, a nice conversation about Outlaws. Both of them have played it extensively. And so I will kind of dive into the ins and outs of the game. We'll talk more about Jay's review. So go watch that. And then Monday, join us for kind of a deep dive into some of the more nuances of the game that they weren't able to get into in the initial reviews. So if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. Let us know what you think about the timeline show. All right, here we go. Episode 17 and 18 of Young Jedi Adventures, 232 BBY, High Republic era, my friend. Let's get into it. Episode 17, part 1 is Stuck in the Muck. Synopsis here is our trio, Kylus and Nubs, are answering a distress call from some people in need, despite it possibly making them late for their rendezvous or their meetup at Starlight Beacon, of all places, Mr. Sheehan. And Kai is going to learn a valuable lesson here that even though sometimes you may want something really bad, it's still important to slow down and help people in need, because the Jedi are not the only people that should help people in need when they are in trouble. So Luke, we are introduced to Starlight Beacon for the very first time on our screens in this episode for the younglings. Before we get into the adventure itself, tell me, as a massive High Republic fan who is very familiar with Starlight Beacon, and for those who aren't familiar with the Great Starlight Beacon yet, we will get into that shortly, but I just want to get a short synopsis from you, Luke. How did it feel to see the beacon, at the end of the episode, when they do eventually make it after helping out the pirates and they get their tour? How did it feel to see the glorious Starlight Beacon for the first time?
It felt wondrous. It felt amazing because I've read, as so many people have, we've read these books about this, we've read comics about this. And now it kind of feels like a little payoff that we have this visual medium on screen. where we get this cool thing that has been built up by these luminous authors, and we finally get to to really feel like we're walking through it and we're
Mhm,
getting to hear about it from Kai. And it was just, it was everything I wanted. It was so exciting. It's one of my favorite things from the High Republic is
mhm,
this beacon of hope that they've
mhm.
built.
It's one thing when, as a Star Wars fan, sometimes, and I think every Star Wars fan can relate to this, that there are certain parts of Star Wars that no matter how often you go back to it, no matter how often you hear about it, you react like a giddy little school child because you get so excited. And being massive High Republic fans and seeing this like Starlight Beacon and knowing how important it is to this whole era of storytelling in Star Wars, and then just even get a little glimpse of it and walk through some of the halls in, a children's animated show, it was really satisfying. Like, it was really satisfying, even though we're not the target audience for this show. Just to see it, it was also, really exciting. But Starlight Beacon, for those of you who do not know, is essentially a project by the Jedi and the Republic to create this massive space station out in the Outer Rim to help connect the Outer Rim with, the rest of the Republic, but also put Jedi in a position and Republic officials in a position to assist the Outer Rim territories and planets that are in need of assistance. That's not always, just readily available from, the core or the mid rim planets. And it's also meant to be kind of a showcase of the Republic in large. There's like all these different rooms within it showcasing different planets from the Republic. It's just like supposed to be this beautiful place where people from all cultures, planets, backgrounds can come together to seek mutual understanding, to seek enlightenment, basically on the goodness of the galaxy, but also a place that can hopefully bring everyone close together. And as Luke so wonderfully put before, it's honestly just a beacon of hope. So, Luke, if you don't mind, let's get to the notes, shall we?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so first off, Nubs, Kai, and Liz are looking for a Tenu tree sampling for Starlight Beacon, because something that they do for Starlight is if you are visiting, from a planet maybe for the first time, you try to bring something to add to Starlight Beacon from your home planet to kind of showcase it. So, Luke, my question for you: you're traveling the Starlight Beacon. What is something you are bringing from Indianapolis, the state of
Mm.
in the state of Indiana of the United States of America, that you are bringing to showcase Indy to the rest of the Star Wars galaxy?
There'd probably be maybe two things here. Indiana, our real world here is pretty known for basketball. So I would
Mhm,
maybe bring a good old Wilson basketball. Have that on display, but maybe also like a sycamore leaf
mhm.
from a tree because
Okay.
it's a pretty natural state. We've got a lot of
Okay.
corn growing, we got a lot of Midwest vibes here. So we got the Indiana State University sycamores. I think it'd be a kind of a
Mhm.
cool little natural feel to it. So that's Indiana in a nutshell.
So I thought Indiana. Oh, well, very good. The nutshell. So I was thinking you were going to try to steal the Indiana, or sorry, the Larry Bird statue from Indiana State University and somehow put that into the
He's a
Starlight Beacon.
legend.
Lightning Larry
I'm gonna leave
Legend.
that one be. I'm not gonna upend that one. The Peyton Manning statue,
um,
though.
That must stay. That cannot leave. The Peyton Manning stage. That one must stay. It cannot. It can't leave. Indy. Indy would literally cease to exist if you took the Peyton Manning statue
There's some truth to that.
out of your city. I love how Kai thinks that if he misses the tour for Starlight Beacon, so he's so like worked up about missing the tour. I love how Kai thinks if he misses the main tour for Starlight Beacon, that they're just gonna like kick him to the curb and he's not going to get to tour Starlight Beacon. They're just gonna be like, nope, you kids, you're screwed. You're done. Like, get out of here. Like, they're not just gonna let these kids come on and see the beacon. I think that's just kind of funny how the mind of a child works.
And I've been there too. Like, I think that I have this one shot to make, this one small window to get this to happen ever. But it's like, no, this happened. This is available to you all the time. I don't know why you're rushing to
Hmm.
get to this. I don't know why this is so special to you. Um, I relate to Kai. Like, I've been in that mindset even as an adult quite a bit, really.
So there's a story of the two of us that I kind of remembered in this moment. And if you recall, it was the year 2019 in December. You were flying to Orlando so that we could watch The Rise of Skywalker together. It was going to be our first ever Star Wars movie we were going to watch together. You were flying across the
Opening
country
night.
to meet up with, the two of us, our friend Casey, for the opening night of this movie that Thursday night. And, we had taken off work the next day to go see the movie again in the morning before we'd already bought tickets for like two other showings before even seeing it the first time. So, and there was such a long line at the airport when I was coming to get you. I don't think our friend Casey had ever seen me more stressed out. We had an hour to get to this movie. Like, we have plenty of time. I have never been more stressed out in my entire life. I was thinking that I was going to miss this movie. And if I missed even seeing the word Lucasfilm pop up on that screen, I was telling you all, if I miss Lucasfilm popping up, I'm not watching it. I'm not seeing it until the next day. Like, I refuse. Like, I have to have the full Star Wars movie experience, because at that time there were no other like films that were announced. So we didn't know when
That
the
was
next
the end.
yeah, so like we didn't know when the next project. We knew that okay, they're probably going to do something, but we didn't know what that would be, when that might be, what timeline that might take place. Like, this was the end in terms of right now. That was the end of the Skywalker saga. We'll see if that holds true in the next 5 years. However, what ended up happening was we got you in plenty of time. We had time to use the bathroom, grab our snacks, sit down, and watch the full previews before the movie even started. And I remember like Casey looking at me and going, "Tyler, can you breathe now?" I'm like, "I can't breathe." Like, I just
Still
till this
can't.
movie starts, I'm still struggling. I'm still like hyped up. Even right now, thinking about the stress of having to make sure I get my tickets for Mando and Grogu months ahead of time. I'm going to purchase multiple orders to make sure I have the seats that I want in the theater I want. It's going to be perfect.
Yeah, that was a really, really fun trip. But it did feel like we were cutting it close there, trying to get to the theater. Because if you, you have to remember this, because I think I went to the wrong terminal.
Oh no, I remember. I wasn't going to bring it up. I
I
was, because
definitely
I
went to the
hung up.
wrong terminal.
I hung up, and that's when Casey told me to relax. Because I was like, "It's the wrong turn. I can't. He has to get over here. They're gonna kick me out of my spot. I can't. Stay here any longer. Like, what the is gonna happen? Like, we're gonna miss Rise of Skywalker. I can't. We're gonna miss a Star Wars movie. Like, and as if there was not gonna be 18 other showings that we could get into, over the course of the weekend. But what ended up happening is we saw the beautiful mess that is Rise of Skywalker that night. Once again the next day, and then we both saw it again the following week. So yes, it worked out for us. Okay, moving on. I don't know. I was just reminded of that is all.
Oh, that feels very relevant talking about this.
I trust that we'll find a way to see Mando and Grogu together as well in 2026. This is plenty
Yeah,
of time to plan and prepare for sure.
absolutely.
So there was a moment where the trio, back to Young Jedi Adventures, where the trio thought that they saw these pirates stealing the ship. They thought that the stress call that they answered on their way to Starlight Beacon was these pirates that are stealing a ship. And Kylos and Nubs, they jumped down. And this honestly reminded me of how Anakin might respond in a situation, because Kylos and Nubs gave the pirates basically about zero point 0.2 seconds to explain the situation before they drew their lightsabers and are like, "All right, I guess it's on." And these kids just charged the pirates. Luke, did you think that they went into aggressive negotiations a bit too quickly?
They did. Absolutely. And it's much more excusable for these kids to have done this. But when Anakin's like 19 or 22 and is doing this, it's like, hey, let's grow up, dude. Like, it's it's understandable. I'm going to maybe excuse the kids for doing that. They've got training sabers too. They're not going to kill anyone. Anakin, you've got a full blown lightsaber and anger issues. Like, let's work through this.
And so ultimately, though, Nash comes to realize that, oh, this is Jellyfruit Pirate. And if you remember, if you followed us for the last, few episodes of Young Jedi Adventures, Jellyfruit Pirate is their friend from before they shared the Jellyfruit with and came to the Jellyfruit Festival with them. And it turns out the kindness that the Jedi had shown them had given them, these pirates, the idea that, hey, we actually don't have to be pirates anymore, and they turn into these benevolent fruit salesmen. And now the Jedi are attacking them, thinking they're still pirates stealing a ship, when in fact they're just trying to get enough of the fruit off the ship so they can get their ship out of the mud. What did you think about the twists and turns of jellyfruit pirates now being jellyfruit and other fruit salesmen?
I think there's some real depth here, really. I mean, if you see someone, you see this lesson of people who are unscrupulous. They're kind of bad people. And they're shown love that they
Hmm.
might not even deserve. They're shown kindness that they might not have even earned. Yet, when they're shown this, it's really impactful and they change their ways and they
Hmm.
become much better contributors to society. So I think that's a lesson we can all take that, giving out kindness that isn't
Hmm.
really deserved is actually going to change someone's life more than if they did deserve it. So,
Absolutely. I have to talk about this, and I know that so we have like with these assignments where sometimes I might have like students write like a letter to their future self for like high school like graduation. Then we like mail it to them, and I have a student that, or not even a student, it's not even my student, it was someone that I coached for a couple of years in basketball. And they had written in part of their letter. My friend who's a teacher told me, she sent me a little snippet of it saying, you might find this, this nice was, they talked about how a few things just about me in like sixth grade and seventh grade basketball. But there was like that point in there where they had written that, you know, it was really sad when my coach told me he was leaving and wasn't going to be there for, my last year. But he told me that, I was amazing. I'm going to do great things and just be confident in myself. And even though it's hard to believe that, I try my best because, he told me to. And, I like to be an encourager to my students and everything. But like getting that and seeing that that was, a kindness that I had, I poured into someone. It was like a great reminder of like my why for as a teacher or a coach of like, why do you do these things? And sometimes it's hard to see that vision played out in the moment. So like, I'm sure that Kai and them are being nice to these pirates at the time, but they don't really know that like that could be the way that this turns out. And I think for Kylus and Nubs moving forward in their Jedi journeys, having this like reminder of like these unexpected kindnesses that we do, like that we do dole out, or staying true to our mission as Jedi is worth it in the end. This is like a reason why we do this, because what we do does make like a difference ultimately in the galaxy.
absolutely. It's crazy how little of an action you can take that will majorly impact someone else's life
Hmm.
positively or negatively. I mean,
Hmm.
your actions, we don't live solitary lives. We live in a
Hmm.
society. So like anything you do is going to ripple out,
Hmm.
and it's up to us to choose what we ripple out. So choose good things.
George Costanza, we're living in a society. We're
I
supposed
was
to
in the
act
pool.
in a civilized way. No, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. So basically, this episode moves on with Kai rushes things. The ship gets thrown even further down a hill into the mud. Nash says, "Well, it can't get any worse." And then a giant tentacle creature comes out and starts to pull it into a cave. And suddenly, it got worse. But Luke, here's the problem: they came up with this grand plan to get the ship back from the creature. And it does work. To their credit, it does work. They get their ship back and they head to Starlight Beacon. However, the grand plan was take the fruit that we have and start chucking it at the creature. Now, surely they could have found a way to distract the creature without throwing away their hard earned fruit they're about to sell at this tentacled beast, right?
Yeah, I think There had to have been a better offering to the monster, which was a crazy looking monster. We didn't really get to see it in the light, but
Mhm.
those tentacles and the like mouth sucker looked insane. Yeah, there had to be like natural on planet like things that needed to eat that we could have found to offer it. Like instead of just like almost attacking it with fruit. Like I don't.
Oh, it's I don't care about attacking it. Attack the beast all you want. It's like we're trying to earn a bottom line here, and we're throwing all of our profits over here at this creature. Like, come on.
That's true. Like there's going to be such a negative return on this trip
I'm
to
worried they're gonna go back to pirating after this trip. Like,
Galgiro.
life was so much easier when we were stealing
They're
from
going to go
people.
back to pirating.
That's like the Be a Twist season 2, Young Jedi Adventures. Jellyfruit Pirate is actually one of the leaders of the Nile.
He's back. Yeah.
He's actually like a strike in the
Yeah.
Nile or something.
He's
He's a
ready to be a
cloud.
Tempest runner.
He is the new Tempest Runner. He actually replaced Lorna D. Dropping on these random High Republic stuff for people that might just be like, what?
Don't
Okay,
worry, we'll
we
get to
have to
it.
move on. We're already the 21st. We're still only on part 1, but it's justified. So they go to Starlight Beacon. Starlight Beacon is beautiful. What did you think, just real quickly, about seeing Master Astala Maru in the animated flesh?
Animated flesh. Hey, he was really cool. His character design looked cool. He had kind of a cool little accent.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be honest, as someone who had read a lot of the books and not any of the comics, I wasn't really attached to the character.
Mm-hmm.
But having recently read all the comics that are attached to the High
Mm-hmm.
Republic, I was like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, man, he goes on a journey. He is very integral
Right.
to Starlight Beacon itself.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very good Jedi. So seeing him and knowing how his story ends, how his arc
Mm-hmm.
ends, I'm like, man, I like we left later that day to go get like food and Em was like, what's going on? Like you're kind of moping around. I was like, I'm thinking about Estala Maru. She's like, get in the car.
That's like that's so true though. Like that's just on point. Like that's such pure High Republic. That's such pure Star Wars. Like there was one time like recently Janelle was talking to me and she was like, what's going on? I was like, I'm just really missing Mando and Grogu right now. Like I'm really missing them. Like I'm really missing my boys. Like I'm really missing the guys.
I just miss him.
Oh man. That's so good. I was just really thinking about Estella Mara right now. That's so good. So, part 2, junkyard sleepover. The trio help Marla face her and their fears by finding the quote unquote gloomling that's been terrorizing her shop at night. Basically, this one was about facing your fears, even though, and the words of like this reminds me of the SpongeBob episode, Patrick, I don't want to face my fears. I'm afraid of them. Like it's about facing your fears in spite of the fear that you face and having the courage to stand up and do the right thing and help someone. You know what I mean? So, what do we think about this one, sir?
It's a great lesson. There was even a line, and I'm not going to get it verbatim, but Kai, I think one of the characters is talking to Marla, and they said, we've been scared this whole time. We've been just like hiding in our fear this whole time, and things are
Mhm.
not getting better.
Being
Like
scared hasn't helped us. I wrote that
being
down
scared
too.
hasn't helped us. Like that's such a good point. Like if you just internalize and reorient yourself, like, you know what? I'm not actually being benefited by
Mhm.
my fear. Like let's do something about that. Let's get over it. It's a good
Mhm.
point.
And there was a good point too. He said that the point they made in the show too was that we are afraid. Like there is fear here. To act is not to say that we are without fear, but it is to say that we have control over our fear and we have the
It's
courage
such a good
to
point.
face it, which I feel like is so important for students to like know, or say students, it's just the teacher brain and me saying students, but like for children to know that like just because we are fearful doesn't mean that that's wrong or bad, but we have to have the courage to face that fear, because there's definitely going to be times in your life, formative times in your life, that will help define who you become if you step up and do the right thing, or if you give into your fear. And I think part of like shows like this and is helping equip young people with lessons early on, to help them grow into the best versions of themselves, like with these lessons.
Absolutely. That's hitting the nail right on the head. And even to get the other side of it, where you're like inside the Star Wars universe, here in a couple, projects, we're gonna read
Mhm.
about fear being the thing that Jedi struggle the most with here, as they face some creatures that are very fearful, causing a lot of fear in
I
the Jedi. So
I cannot
this
wait for
this
that book.
concept this concept is going to be very pervasive in this High Republic publishing initiative.
It's
So
like the Wreath Aslan Rail book, right? Right?
that is
Is that one?
that one's coming up.
Or you're
We
talking about specifically the one that comes out tomorrow?
oh, I'm just saying like there's going to be creatures we've already talked about in phase
You mean
2.
in
I'm just
general? You mean in
in general.
general? Like, oh, okay, I thought you were referencing a book specifically, and I'm like, well, because those were the two that come out this month and like I think early next month.
Yeah, you're correct. I'm
Okay.
just
Oh
saying
yeah.
in general, like the nameless
Mhm.
are around the corner. We've already actually talked about them on this show already with phase 2 of the High Republic, but like
Mhm.
it's
Oh
yeah,
boy,
fear as a concept is very
it's
big
gonna be so.
for this project.
Mhm. So we're back with Marla and the junk giant, and Marla is terrified of a gloomling that is terrorizing her junkyard. Gloomlings are these legend, fictional. We emphasize this fictional creatures on Tanu that are supposedly haunt you in your home and force you to leave. They like haunt you and mess with you until you decide to pack up and go. Of course, we come to find out here that the gloomling is not real after the group comes together to solve this problem. But the Gloomling was actually a droid with just a sheet stuck over it, and the droid had been left for, dead for lack of a better word, and was looking for parts to help fix it. Marlowe helps fix the droid and bring it back to its full self. The droid had strong Dio vibes from Rise of Skywalker. It was almost like kind of like the hair dryer droid. It had the voice modulator that wasn't working. It just needed someone to take the moment of kindness to fix it. So, Luke, my question for you is: do you hope that we see Dio in the next Ray movie, or do you hope Dio is a thing of the Rise of Skywalker past that stays there?
I liked Dio. I thought Dio and BB-8 were a good little droid duo themselves. I kind of like C-3PO and R2-D2 to be the unit and them kind of like be their thing, and I like BB-8 and Dio to be like their duo. And hey, maybe we'll see
Ooh.
PT3 make it an appearance here. That's what they named this droid at the end of the episode,
Okay. Yes.
PT3.
Yes. Okay. That's
So
good.
that's my hot take for 2024 is that PT3 is going to show up in the next movie.
PT3,
You heard it here
specifically
first.
PT3. You heard
Yes.
it here first. That's like the biggest take in Star Wars history. PT3. I just want to see Dio in the Rey movie just go by real quick, and all we hear is squeaky wheel, and that's it. Like that's the only thing.
No, 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 no,
And then
no,
and
thank
then he's
you.
gone.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Part 8, episode 18, part 1, The Great Leaf Guide. Here, the trio are learning the art of sky skimming, which is basically surfing through the air with the wind. The lesson of this one is to learn patience and even more patience, because the trio learns that when you're flying and skimming through the air on their gliders, that you have to go with the flow of the wind. Wherever the wind takes you, you have to go and be patient. If you try to force your way to one side or the other, it's going to, cause chaos and it's going to destroy your glider. So they have to learn to be patient to get where they want to go based off of the current around them. Ultimately, they do not follow that at first, get lost, and have to find and learn that lesson on the way in an epic moment where they get out of this canyon they're stuck in and glide up to the top, back where they're supposed to be. Luke, how are we feeling about part 1, episode 18?
This was a good one. Patience is really hard. I mean, I think I say this like every episode, like there are still adults. I myself am an adult and I still struggle with patience. Sometimes I'm not patient when I need to be. So like just as a general lesson, like this is a good one that like sometimes you need to submit and go with the flow of
Mhm.
things that are out of your control. You need to let those things work and you work with them.
Which Honestly, like I feel like I'm an extremely patient person. Like as a teacher, like I feel like I'm an extremely patient person. But I would say that you are one of the most patient people I know. So when I hear someone like you telling me that it's important for patience and that you still struggle with patience, it makes me have to do a little bit of, introspective look and some look inside, like how much more do I myself need to improve in my patience if, the great Luke is still struggling with patience.
We all have different needs and different lives we live. So I mean, hey, maybe you don't need that much more.
So we meet Rix Tagano on the planet Condron, which is where sky skimming apparently got its debut. Luke, what kind of species is Rix Tagano? Do we know?
He appears to be a Nautilin. So our good friend Kit Fisto got to be a brother here.
Okay, we had a brother of Kit Fisto here, Rick Sagano, and Kit Fisto clearly, are on opposite sides of the physical specimen, uh, you know, spectrum because Kit Fisto has a 16 pack and Rick Tagano is sporting the gallon
He looks like
on
he's had
his
a
end.
six pack.
He does look like he had a six pack. Like he is the Star Wars version of vibey surfer dude that just
Oh yeah,
straight vibes, goes out to the club afterwards, hangs out with the bros, just bros
absolutely.
out. What's
He's
up,
living a
dude?
great life. He loves his life. I'll tell you
Oh, he
that.
he does love his life. Like he literally reminds me of a Star Wars version of a California surfer dude.
I think that's what they were
Is
going
that
for, and they nailed it.
wrong of me to say? Is that inappropriate somehow?
I feel
I
like
don't think so.
nah, nah.
All right, perfect. Here's my question: what if there's like no wind in the air? Like, what if the wind just stops? Like, you're supposed to sail with the wind, like this natural wind. What happens if the wind just goes out and you fall? And I don't know if they had special testing ones for Kylos and Nubs because they fell and like the boards like hovered in the air when they fell, like so they didn't just like land on the ground. So, like, is that built into all of them, or are these special training pods? Do we know any more about sky skimming?
So I don't have actual lore about sky skimming, but I do just want to throw this out there as I'm processing this in the moment. This had to have been created by a someone who lives on the coast. Because as someone who
Mhm.
lives in the Midwest, in the middle of the country, there are quite a few times, quite a few days of the year where there's no wind. So I'm like, this would cross my mind if I was making this episode and I'm like, oh, work with the wind, and I would immediately be like, hey, writer, what if there's no wind? Because that's a thing. I understand for someone who maybe grew up on California coast, there's pretty
Okay.
much like always wind, pretty much rolling in off the sea. Like you probably just
Mhm.
wouldn't even think there wouldn't be any. So
Technically, Chicago is called the Windy City.
that is true, and that is on a body of water, which
I
again,
guess
a lot of
the Great
the
Lakes. Yes, yes, yes,
which
yes.
again, a
Very,
lot of the
very true.
Midwest doesn't really have a huge body of water
I feel
next to
like
it. So
Oklahoma is pretty windy.
that's fair.
Granted,
And
they have a lot of.
there's
Did you know there's not a single? I'm pretty sure this is true. There's not a single natural lake in Oklahoma. That every single lake is a man-made lake, and they have, I believe, like the most man-made lakes per square mile of any state in the United States.
that's like that's really interesting. I figured there would be at least one natural lake.
That may
That's
not be true. I just think I remember hearing that
I
one
could
time.
believe that though.
It's believable, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
we've
interesting.
truly reached the most boring levels of Star Wars if we're talking about man-made lakes in the middle of Oklahoma. Moving on, chiffons, which are giant fish birds in the sky. Would you ride a chiffon?
I don't know if I would. They look kind of scary to me, to be honest. I don't think I want to really. They're kind of big. They're like as big.
Would you ride a purgle?
Those things are also a little scary. Like
Okay, I was about to say, I was like, if you say yes to riding a purgle but no to a
I,
chiffon, that seems a little bit messed up.
they're just
What
they're
would you get on though and ride? Because little kids are riding these.
That's true, and maybe they're more brave than I. But I think I'm gonna go with more of like a creature with legs that I can like ride like a horse. So like bantha or
We don't
something.
have horses. Like a bantha. Okay. Like a bantha.
Like a bantha.
Go. Stop. Go. Stop. I love that video so much. It's so good. Just the last few things on this one. The sun is starting to go down. They get stuck in this cliff. They have to basically use their Jedi capes to fix their sails because they crashed, and ultimately they make their way back to the rest of them and enjoy a great feast with Surfer Dude Rick Stigano. Luke, any other notes before we move on to our final part from episode 18?
I don't think so. I think this was a good one. Just having fun. They kind of failed the lesson twice. They get into the predicament where
Mhm.
they're like they go against the grain, and then they're in another predicament where they also don't follow the lesson. It takes them
Mhm.
like twice to get this one. So I feel like that's kind of a rare one. Usually they fail at the lesson, then they get it and they succeed. Kind of the formula.
That
So like
or they're teaching the lesson to someone else throughout the episode. Like, they're already good,
true.
but they're maybe teaching the characters they're working with or Nash. I feel like it's rare that, like you said, it's rare that the group misses the lesson, misses the mark, tries again, misses it a second time, and then the third time we finally get it right. It's good. I guess we have to get some variety here.
Kind of
But
broke the mold here.
in part two, Harvest Feast. This was my favorite one of the four parts. It's my favorite part we've had in a minute. I'll just say
Wow.
that. And it may seem odd when I kind of give the synopsis. Basically, there is the Dunkutu Festival on the planet of Omaka, or at least with the people, the Omakan people. And it's just a family festival that's really deeply rooted in tradition and family and culture in this society. And the big festival for the year is coming up, and this one family is kind of going through this estrangement where the father and his daughter are not speaking to the grandfather, and he's going to celebrate the festival on his own because really of an argument that took place where neither side really listened to the other. Grandpa wanted to use some droids to help, load the, I forget what their
The
Gomgord,
Gomgords.
the Gomgords. Yes, he wanted to use droids to load the Gomgords for the festival. But the father's big into the tradition that we know. We don't use technology. We don't use droids for this festival. We have to do it by hands. But the grandpa is really just saying, I can't do what I used to do anymore. There's a big argument that broke out. Neither side really listened to the other. And now no one's going to be happy during the festival. Ultimately, Kylus and Nubs, this was an example of them teaching others the main lesson throughout. Basically taught everyone that we need to work together to listen to one another. And ultimately, the family comes back together for a great festival after they help each other out when the droids are malfunctioning and listen to one another. So, Luke, how did we feel about this one?
I feel like this was just kind of representation that we don't normally get, where it's kind of a broken family, where
Mm-hmm.
maybe in a strange family, like you said, where things are not great between some generations in the family. So dealing with that, mending that,
Right.
I think it's really good to show that that is possible, and it's something
Mm-hmm.
that you should strive for. It's not something you should give up on. So I thought that was great.
So the reason this stood out so much to me was just someone watching this, and let's step beyond the fact that the father and the grandfather are not speaking. Let's look at the fact that Fiorna, who's the child, has no more relationship with her grandfather because they haven't seen grandfather in some time because he left their farm to work on his own with his droids. So we have a child who is hurting in this situation. There is no mom. Like, the mom, we don't get into it. Obviously, it's a kid show, but it's not like we see mom of Fiorna walking around. So we can assume that based on the fact she's only talking about her dad, that he's a single father. Something happened to Fiorna's mom at some point, and grandpa's living alone too. So there is no grandma. So you probably have two men that are dealing with loss, that are dealing with hurt because their significant others in Star Wars, I would assume, because it's a kid show, have probably died, or maybe there's a separation going on, something's happening. And I am sure there are so many kids watching this with a single parent or with family that's gone through hardship and heartache, and take that out on others because of like hurt that you were expressing. Because sometimes when you argue with someone, sometimes it's not because of maybe like you're actually upset with them, but because of something else that's been bothering you so much, you're taking it out on someone else. So when I watched this, I immediately thought of the fact that there is no mom, there is no grandma, and now there's this kid who only has their father for support, and another big supporting figure of the grandfather is no longer in the picture. And for me, it just is a reminder as I get to know certain students I have this year in the past, or in past years, that come from families of all different types. Single moms, single dads, living with grandma, living with grandma, living with cousins, aunts, uncles, like all of the above. And how if there's a possibility for family reconciliation to happen, that it's so important that we take whatever steps we can to help that process happen. So I thought it was like really beautiful for kids to see other kids helping their parents and their grandparents like heal, and seeing their families heal, because that's a good lesson to learn from a young age, that one, family is super important, that family is everything, honestly. And that doesn't always mean like blood family. For some people, that's like their found family, like that, whatever your family is to you, like that is like that should be like the most important thing, right? And I think we're able to see a kids show demonstrate to the kids watching that lesson of family being super important. And so I thought it was just really nice to see that and see it happen in a healthy way of like listening to each other, valuing the importance of how we're feeling and expressing our feelings, and listening to those people express their feelings to ultimately come together. So I think that's why this episode, this part, just spoke to me so much, because I feel like there's just so much brokenness going on in family structures, with found family structures or our actual family structures. And to see kids being able to watch this and understand maybe there's hope for my family still to reconcile. Maybe there's a better way forward for us, and they maybe be able to, maybe they can't do that for their family, but maybe they'll take that lesson with them as they get older and start their own, or think about starting their own.
That's huge. Um, and it's something that's not gonna. It's a hard lesson to learn. I mean, I I'm someone who came from a really good family who really just didn't have drama, didn't have estranged pieces, and so
Mhm.
I might have never even learned this skill of having to communicate well,
Mhm.
which is kind of what's on display here. Is like a breakdown in communication is really what starts all of this and what can really
Right.
keep it from healing. So this really skill of accurately communicating your feelings is going to help mend relationships that aren't going to get mended any other way. Um, and that's something that you have to learn as someone in a broken family. It's something that I wouldn't have had to have learned in a good family, but it's something I need.
Mhm.
It's an important lesson that I have to learn to go to my job, to talk to my spouse, my future
Mhm.
kids. Like I'm gonna need that skill. And so it's just super important, and especially in this situation.
Yes, I love it when kids are able to see like better paths forward, because honestly, and this comes up in teaching. I'm sure this comes up. You have like a nephew of yours that you see. Kids are exposed. Like I cannot imagine. Like I think we're both like 27, 28 years old. We were exposed to so much as kids, just growing up in an age where social media was starting to take like a larger hold. But I think kids nowadays are exposed to so much, and they're aware of so much more than they were 50 years ago, where it was a lot easier to hide your dirty laundry, or it was a lot easier to protect your children at a younger age from witnessing certain things. But now, because of social media and technology and the way all of that blends together, there is no hiding anything from people anymore. And I think kids are even so much more aware of like some of these societal issues, like families having to go through shit, honestly, like. And sometimes it's really hard to process that, and to see that in a kids show, maybe it doesn't mean anything like consciously for them right there, but subconsciously that's like a lesson that they can file away, where if like a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old is watching this, that maybe when they get into an argument with their friend, they might listen to their friend a little bit more, and that alone might start that friend or themselves on a path of listening and being in touch with our feelings and how to express that in a positive way, if anything.
Exactly. And it's important to keep trying even if you try to reach out and you fail. We see Rug do that. Grandpa Rug.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to tell Tay about why he's using the droids and he kind of words fail him. And
Mm-hmm.
it's important to also have some kind of backup.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're not, Rug and Tay aren't close, but Rug has made good friends with the young Jedi. So when his words fail him, Kai, Liss, and Nubs are able to like, no, 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 like keep going. This is good. You need to tell
Mm-hmm.
him what you told us, and what you told us was,
Mm-hmm.
this is why you're using the droids. You feel like your body can't do
Mm-hmm.
it anymore. So like
That's a great
support
point, because
systems,
he's not even
yeah,
able to talk about it, and they're able to help him out. And it's even for kids to see, they're like, hey, adults struggle with this too. Like, it's hard to communicate that, because he was wanting to express that and even found himself not being able to.
yeah, it's
Just shaking my screen
it's wonderful that the young Jedi are kind of the heroes here.
here. Hmm.
Emotionally, they're not. They kind of did physically save some assets around the town and stuff, but like they really
Hmm.
saved this relationship between these two people, which is more important than
Hmm.
any piece of physical property you could name. So
Absolutely. So relationships are so key. That's why I just loved this episode, because it really dived into the importance of family, importance of relationships, and the importance of listening to one another and having that understanding of where people are coming from. And every day when I interact with kids, I have to remind myself of, they are just kids, and then like the more I get to know them, like, and understand their situations and understand what they're going through, or or other friends, adults, people that we have in our lives, the more you take time to listen, get to know them, and get to know where they're coming from, the more you're able to understand them, and the more empathy, or that you might have for that person, understanding, patience, like all of those things, when we realize that we're all human in the end. We got some problems. But that wraps up Young Jedi Adventures episodes 17 and 18 tonight. Today, I guess these come out in the morning on Saturdays. So remember, check out the live show from a couple of days ago about the topic that Luke and I at this point in time haven't decided yet. Who knows? Maybe we're going to do a way too early Mando Grogu predictions episode. Who knows? Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Check it out. I'm sure we had a good time. And check out the Monday show coming up here in just a couple of days as you're listening to this, where we're going to do a deep dive into Star Wars Outlaws, the good things you need to know about the game, why the game might not work for you, what we hope the game improves on over the next few weeks and months. Everything Star Wars Outlaws. So if you're a gamer or you're just curious about Star Wars games, maybe you want to get into it, that will be a podcast for you. Like and subscribe, please, to the YouTube channel. Luke, do you have any final words before we head out today?
I just thought it was funny. We're plugging Star Wars Outlaws, which everybody go check out that stuff. And I just remembered that last night I re-downloaded Star Wars Squadrons because I never finished it, and I want to finish that game. So I'm also going to be playing some games here in the
Take
in
it to the
the
skies.
original trilogy era too. So yeah,
Very good. That will be fun, I am sure. I really wish I could have got more into Star Wars Squadrons. It just didn't have enough in the
I
single
fell
player
off.
mode.
Yeah,
It was so much in a multiplayer, and then the multiplayer just never really took on like they were hoping. But the mechanics and the immersion of flying is better than anything we've ever gotten. It just never really took off. It was just a misfire on that for the most part. But
I think
you
so
know
too.
what? Sometimes that happens. Everyone, thanks for watching the Timeline Show. Next week, we'll still be in the year 232 BBY, covering episodes 19 and 20. Only a few weeks left of Young Jedi Adventures before Light of the Jedi pod comes out, which Luke and I have already recorded. We'll probably be recording Into the Dark here soon. Test of Courage, just to get us ready and ramped up for some book talks. Maybe I'll just message Justine Ireland, see if she wants to come on to talk Test of Courage. Shoot for the stars,
Please.
right? Something like that. All
I'd
right,
love it.
everybody. Have a great rest of your day, nights, whatever, when you're listening to this. And remember, we are all the Republic for light and life, everybody. Until next time.